Awesome. Thank you, Fred. Welcome along to the 5 p.m. Service at Collective. I'm Ben. I will be your guide this evening. Let's get started. Thanks, Fred, for opening with music with us as always. Fred, our prophet in residence, singer of songs. We're going to talk with Fred in just a minute about justice. Things going on well?
Things are going well.
Good. Glad to hear it. With us as usual, Kenny. How's it going, Kenny?
Hey.
And we've got Dan for a little while with us, so we'll get to them in just a second. 5 p.m. liturgy. Liturgy means the work of the people. So it's not just me, not just my voice. It's us, and it's not just us, it's you. It's all of us working our faith out together. Not me preaching, but us working out spirituality as a community. You can sign up for the weekly email. That's the hub where you're going to find everything you need to find at wearecollectivechurch.com. Get signed up for the email as quick as you can. In fact, you got one in your inbox this very day, just a few hours ago. If you are already signed up for the email, you can open that. That's going to have everything in it that I'm about to talk about, so you can follow along real quick. There's a chunk in there called Linktree Training. We talked about this last week. If you haven't had a chance, check out our Linktree. It's literally just a list of labeled links, and you're going to need those links to find us in order to practice with us online. So find that. If you're with us live, and there's, Kenny was saying, actually, there's already a pretty full chat. Who's on with us? How's that looking?
We've got Brooksy, we've got Elizabeth Fuller.
Awesome.
We've got Dottie, Grace.
Fantastic.
Rachel.
All right, Rachel,
Karen
Sarah.
Long, Jim Kane.
Awesome.
It's a really packed chat.
We have a
right now.
packed house tonight. Fantastic. We also have with us Heather. Heather's not on screen yet. Heather's going to be in just a bit. Man, fantastic. We got a bunch of people on. Really great to see you all. Elizabeth, congratulations. Mazel tov on the baby. How exciting. Hopefully Mike is there as well. Hey to Mike. There is no work of the people again this week. And I know, before you guys run me out of town to the edge of the hill, work of the people is coming back. There's going to be a survey that you're going to need to take part in, and I'm going to share with you in just a little bit about what's going on there. But first, I want to throw to Dan. Every week we go, hey, Dan's on the chat. Dan's going to share what's going on with Collective Cares. This week, Dan is with us live. Catch us up on what's going on with Collective Cares. Talk to the people. They're up here.
Oh, sure. This week we are going to go forward with prom planning.
Awesome.
Originally, we were going to have the LGBTQ prom last year, but unfortunately, planning for the end of this year, we don't know what's going on with the pandemic. So we decided, why wait? We're going to go ahead and plan it. We think that November is going to be safe, so that's when we're going to plan for it. And what we're doing now is we're starting to gather ideas. So our next meeting, which will be at the Drecka Theater, will be live. And we'll also be online with a Zoom chat. We have a new number, so please look that up at the site for Collective.
Ooh, Dan, actually, you know what? Since we're live, I'm going to show this to you. So if you haven't had a chance to click on the link tree, you can click on the link tree in your email, and I'm going to come down here and show Dan what we did. We changed it so the Collective Care Zoom has both the meeting ID and the password as a part of the link.
Nice.
So if you can't click that link to get in the Zoom, you can still see the link. And then that was such a good idea. We did that for the after Sunday service Zoom. So if you're somebody who's had trouble logging on because you don't have the password or the number and you can't just click the link and get through, that's also solved in the new link tree.
Great.
Anyway, so that's coming up. Anything else you want to throw in about Collective Cares?
No, if you want to participate in anything, you don't have to be a member of the LGBT community. And the one thing we've decided to increase for the prom, if you did not be able to go to the prom with your significant other, you are welcome to come to the prom in November. So you can come and you can bring a date. You can also volunteer to be a chaperone, but we're going to be discussing all that about how we're going to organize it next Thursday at 5:30.
Awesome. So if you've wondered how you can be involved in just supporting the LGBTQ community as a part of a progressive Christian church, Collective Cares is sort of our hub where we do that. So connect with Dan, figure out how you can be involved in that group. Freddie, talk to us about what's coming up with Faith.
Well, there's a lot coming up with Faith. For those that don't know, kind of the most important date of the entire year for Faith's work is the Action Assembly, and that this year is going to be on March 22nd at 6:30 p.m. And there's a couple of different ways that you can participate because we're still in a pandemic. We want to be conscientious of that and not get too many people to where we can spread this virus. So we're doing something different, which is a drive-in rally. So the event is going to be March 22nd at the Drive-In Church in Daytona Beach Shores. And for those that would like to come out, and you can come in your vehicle and remain in your vehicle for the duration of the event. Instead of clapping, we're going to be honking our horns.
Yeah, for justice.
For justice.
That's
honking
right.
For justice. And you'll be able to hear the event through your car radio and fully participate. But for folks that would rather not drive all the way out there, or if you're still uneasy about the concept of getting a lot of folks together in one space, we have two different options for you. The easiest one is live stream. If you go to faithfallujah.org, you'll be able to click. Right now it says click to enter rally. It will say click to enter action assembly. And on that date, you can click there, put in your name and information, and you'll be launched into the live stream, which will be on YouTube.
I just shared the Facebook link to the Facebook event for the Nehemiah Action
great.
Assembly, and that way you can RSVP there also, and from there they can find the webpage, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
So that's how you can participate. Oh, and also if you would like to participate in person and you're comfortable doing that, but don't want to drive all the way out, our fellow faith members at Our Lady of the Lakes are doing something in their parish, having a watch party, watching the YouTube. So it's completely up to you. I know Ben and I will be there in person at the drive-in, and we've got a lot to get done this year with youth criminal justice and affordable housing. We've been fighting for Affordable Housing Trust Fund now for over 2 years. And our representatives maybe now are a little bit more inclined to do what we're asking, because it's the right thing to do and it's obvious. It's what all of our neighbors are doing. And then, of course, we have our youth criminal justice. You're going to hear a story at the Action Assembly from a young mother whose son was arrested at 7 years old for breaking and entering a school where the door was unlocked. And it's a heart-wrenching story, and it represents hundreds of children that are arrested every year where they could be given a second chance. So we've got a lot to get done this year, and your presence at the Action Assembly, whether in person or online, actually makes an enormous difference in getting a yes from the public officials that are attending. So, and then also, if you're interested in learning more about this, or you're a faith member and you want to help us get organized, on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., the Quakers, who are also part of Faith, the Quakers in DeLand, are hosting a Zoom meeting at 7 p.m., and they're inviting collective folks and other folks from the west side of the county to come. We're going to hear some issue updates, then get a little bit more in depth on what's been going on, and kind of get organized for the Action Assembly. So I think Kenny just dropped, or someone just dropped a link in there.
I didn't drop that one in yet. I think Kenny's going to be able to throw that in. There's the link tree. There, he's going to get the meeting link in.
Yeah,
just
so
a second.
that'll be in, and if you've been involved before, it's very
Awesome.
likely you'll have already gotten an email from Steve Tonjes
Okay,
about
yeah.
that as well. So for anyone that's interested and wants to come, it should be an informative evening. So that's
Awesome.
coming up
Yeah,
on Tuesday.
if you like us, if you've struggled in the pandemic with knowing what it means to be of service when you're sort of trying to avoid being near people, the way that Faith does justice, especially by mobilizing people power to hold representatives accountable, this is one of those rare moments where there's just something you can do. Just by being present, it makes a huge difference. So if you guys would make a point of being a part of that, we would really appreciate it. It'll make a big difference in our county, and it'll make a huge difference for the 16,000 people that need affordable housing in the next few years. So, all right, one of the problems, let's shift gears, and some of you, I sort of joked at the intro that some people are wondering, is Work of the People ever coming back? One of the problems with the church is that it seems there are very few voices doing all the talking, and I jokingly, Kenny was pushing back on this earlier. I know I'm the problem because I'm the one that does the most talking on Sunday night, but that's also my job. So from the beginning, we've been trying to include your voice in services, from Occupy Trilogy way back in the Da Vinci Design Studio, to then moving with Trilogy to the new coffee shop, to then this most recent iteration where we've done it on Zoom and changed to Work of the People. We've always wanted to include your voices. We wanted the sermons and the services, and we still do, to be reflections and echoes of your spirituality, of our spirituality. our wisdom, our celebration, our practice. And that's what this is going to look like moving forward for this next season. The word liturgy, we've said this for a few weeks, means the work of the people. The word work, W-E-R-K, popular culturally, has come to mean a proclamation of enthusiasm in reaction to something someone said. And the importance here is not just me, something somebody else said. So work of the people, or what we just call work, is one of the ways collective affirms the power of the communal voice. We're entrusting the crowdsourcing work of shaping our services to the ones who participate in them week over week, which is why you see a lot of the same people around, whether that's live or later. So however you engage the service, work of the people can be better with your voice, with your perspective. So what that's going to look like moving forward is a couple times a month, not every week, a couple times a month, we're going to spend time discussing our own practice of the community statement. We're going to review the prior couple weeks' sermons, and we're going to finalize our reflections on the text and the themes for the sermons to come and the services. We're going to ask hard questions like, what does good news sound like for the world this week? And we're going to finish then by doing the actual work of administrating, putting together a service so that all of the rest of the people in our congregation can practice with us, can participate with us. So we are almost ready to meet the next version of this life-giving group. But first, we need your help. Work of the people, as always, requires your voice. And so we need, and that's both in Zoom and in person as we relaunch this new opportunity. So if you're interested in participating in Work of the People and helping to shape and decide kind of when it meets, there's going to be a poll that goes out this coming Wednesday in the midweek email. And if you want to be a part of that, you need to fill out that poll. That's going to help decide when the time is that this group is going to meet. So keep an eye on that email. Again, if you're not already on the email, you've got to get that. That's where you're going to get connected to the life of this community. So find the email. Work of the People is going to be relaunching soon, a little bit different format, but we need your help telling us what time is best for us to do that. My goodness, 5:15, so not 6:15, 5:15. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot going on. That's exciting, right? After the year we've just come through, it's exciting that there's a lot going on, that there's things going on in our community. If your head's kind of spinning, if you're new to this, if you're just dipping a toe back in the water, let's pause for a second and Dan is going to remind us who we are, but not just who we are, how we are. How is it that we carry ourselves and we practice together? Dan, would you read the community statement for us?
Sure. We value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and backgrounds, representing an intergenerational community. And we've traveled different paths. So we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people, from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
We could just sit here still all afternoon after that, huh? So well done. Thank you for the love that you put into that reading. We're going to say bye to Dan. Thanks, Dan. Watch your head on that mic. And we're gonna welcome Heather in, and in the spirit of change, we're gonna sing about change. How's that? Let's do it. Make sure I get us on the right song here. Thanks, Dan.
Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone. For the times they are changing. Come riders and critics Don't stand in the doorway, don't block a door. Pray the gates turn will be restored. There's a battle outside and it's raging. Soon shake all your windows and rattle your walls. For the times they are changing. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out a new one if you can't lend a hand. For the times they are changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast. The present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading. The first one now will later be last. For the times they are changing. For the times they are changing.
That they are. That they are. All right. Let's see where we are. We're going to sit silently. And in meditation, we're going to practice first awareness, the survey of the landscape of our inner life. And I'm going to give you some words just to let sort of wash over you before we sit silently underneath the question, how is it with your soul? Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your mind, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. And then some words from Frederick Buechner. It is no surprise that the Bible uses hearing, not seeing, as the predominant image for the way human beings know God. They can't walk around God and take God in like a cathedral or an artichoke. They can only listen to time for the sound of God. To the good times and bad times, times of their own lives, for the words God is addressing to, of all people, them, you, us. And so for 3 minutes, we will listen to time for the sound of God. Listen as is best for you. That can be silent with your eyes closed. That can be using the drone footage with the background music. Let's listen together for about 3 minutes. All right, welcome back. Tonight, Heather has our first reading for us. Heather, take it away.
Good evening. I'm glad to be back.
It's awesome to have you. It's
It
been
is.
so good to get to see a few friendly faces as we get excited about being back together.
Yep. So let's read from Paul's letter to the Romans, from Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us has only one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, though many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others.
Thanks, Heather. As we got ready to sit silently after we sang that song, Heather went, wait, go back. We've got to look at that verse one more time from the Dylan tune. And let me just read this slowly, and then we're going to sing it a couple times. Come, senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside, and it's raging. It'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing. Let's tag that a couple times. Just let that wash over you real quick. Come, senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. The he that gets hurt will be he who is stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. Soon shake all your windows and rattle your walls. The times they are a-changing. One more time. Congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorways, don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who is stalled. The battle outside and it's raging. Soon shake all your windows and rattle your walls. For the times they are a-changing. Times they are a-changing. Go for it, Kenny.
A recent survey conducted by the American Enterprise Institute found that more than a quarter of white evangelicals believe that Donald Trump has been secretly battling a group of child sex traffickers that include prominent Democrats and Hollywood elites, a core tenet of the QAnon conspiracy theory. The data suggest a faith-based reality divide emerging within the Republican Party. Nearly 3/4 of white evangelical Republicans believe widespread voter fraud took place in the 2020 election, compared with 54% of non-evangelical Republicans. 60% of white evangelical Republicans believe that Antifa, the anti-fascist group, was mostly responsible for the violence in the Capitol riot, compared with 42% of non-evangelical Republicans. Other surveys have found that white evangelicals are much more skeptical of the COVID-19 vaccine and are less likely than other Americans to get it, potentially jeopardizing the country's recovery from the pandemic. How did the church in America, particularly its white Protestant evangelical manifestation, end up here? For many skeptics, the explanation seems obvious. Faith and reason are antipodes. The former necessarily cancels out the latter, and vice versa. Cultivating the life of the mind, however, has been an important current throughout much of Christianity's history, a recognition that intellectual pursuits can glorify God. During the Middle Ages, monasteries became centers of learning and gave rise to the first European universities. The writings of Thomas Aquinas, which blended Aristotelian philosophy and Christian theology, set out a framework for reconciling scientific knowledge with scriptural truths. Martin Luther, who led the Protestant Reformation, was an early advocate of universal education and argued that educating needy youth was vital in order that a city might enjoy temporal peace and prosperity. The Puritan minister Jonathan Edwards grappled with metaphysics and epistemology in his writings and sermons. In the 20th century, C.S. Lewis and Reinhold Niebuhr enjoyed popular acclaim as Christian public intellectuals. T.S. Eliot and W.H. Auden are among the writers whose theologically orthodox Christianity served as a focal point of their art. Evangelicalism in America, however, has come to be defined by its anti-intellectualism. The style of the most popular and influential pastors tend to correlate with shallowness. Charisma trumps expertise. Scientific authority is often viewed with suspicion. So it is of little surprise that American evangelicals have become vulnerable to demagoguery and misinformation. In a classic study, Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, the historian Richard Hofstadter, writing in the 1960s, during the aftermath of the excesses of McCarthyism, examined certain attitudes and ideas in the United States that had converged to produce a resentment and suspicion of the life of the mind and those who are considered to represent it. He saw American evangelicalism as a chief culprit. In 1994, Mark Knoll, a historian who was then a professor at Wheaton College in Illinois, the preeminent evangelical liberal arts institution, published The Scandal of the Evangelical Mind. In the opening sentence of the book's first chapter, he writes, "The scandal of the evangelical mind is there is not much of an evangelical mind."
Oh, thank you, Kenny. Thank you if you hung in there. I know that was a long reading, but I hope that it was as worth it for you for that punchline. And the reason I feel like I can take a swing is because I came to faith in an evangelical youth group. I'm the product of one. I would not be who I am, where I am without it. And so I'm having to grapple with that at a time where what it means to have been evangelical means less and less. And so this was just, this is an excerpt from an article in the New Yorker called "The Wasting of the Evangelical Mind" by Michael Lau. According to my friend Paul Chilcote, who's one of the handful of folks that passed me through my ordination boards recently, Paul says about this article, this is an extremely incisive analysis of American religious history that'll help you make sense of the fundamentalist lunacy that's taken hold. The sad reality of this development is the failure of so many to see that this radicalization of the faith has nothing to do with Jesus, his teachings, and his way. In fact, it is antithetical to Jesus. This is one of the reasons I abandoned any association with evangelicalism several years ago now. And then this is how he closes. We need a renewed vision of the God of love, compassion, and justice that engages the whole of our lives with head, heart, and hands in the quest for beloved community. A renewed vision, head, heart, and hands, beloved community. Jesus summarizes, when asked about what's most important, he summarizes spiritual practice and casts his vision for beloved community by quoting the Hebrew prayer called the Shema. And he starts out by saying, listen, and I love that it opens with a call to action. Listen so that you might learn to love God with integrity of heart, we talked about last week. Integrity of mind, we'll talk about tonight, and then soul and strength. And then he adds, once you've figured out how to love yourself to integrity, then love your neighbor as well as you've loved yourself. This is, if you haven't picked up on this is classic Jesus. He's pushing us past ourself, past our ego, into the unknown of community, into the unknown of the other, the unknown of the stranger. And what he's always trying to do is move us from me to we, from I to us. And so he starts by saying, "Hear, O Israel, incline your ear." And Israel is the name of anyone who's wrestled with God, right? That's what the name Israel means. Anyone who's wrestled with God, listen up. Not for answers, belief, theology. Listen. Listen. We said 2 weeks ago, the name of God is the name of a call. It's a call that insists upon wholeness, oneness, integrity. We use different names. We call these love, justice, humility, charity, peacemaking, service, self-giving love. The name of God is the name of a call for wholeness. And this call is God alone. No physical or conceptual idol. God alone is God. We practiced listening to this call together. Last week we practiced loving God with a whole heart. And tonight we're going to figure out a little bit more what it means to love God with all our mind, which is weird for me to say. I'm on the edge of 40, and I've wrestled this year in the pandemic feeling that my mind is dulling, that it's duller than it's been. I don't feel I've got that sort of magic and the speed and the memory and the wit and the charm and the decision-making ability, that real good creativity. I've been frustrated with myself. I've been frustrated with my leadership, as have many other people. And I've been getting these medical tests, and I found some interventions that help, and I've gotten ADHD tested, and that didn't end up being exactly what I thought it was, but it's symptomologically related to some very real anxiety, and now I'm getting that treated, and that's kind of a little bit better. The point is, I've been feeling sorry for myself. And the truth is, experientially, practically, I feel like I've lost a step, and that's what matters, and I've been feeling sorry for myself. So my dad comes to visit this weekend. And he sits down and he shares some scary news about some tests that he's going to have done. And this is just, we're months after his mom died of dementia after over a decade in memory care. And so we sat this weekend right here on the porch and cried. And after we cried for a while and nobody said anything, my dad said, it's really filled me with peace to realize that I am a spiritual being who is much more than my mind. How do we have that kind of mindset? I mean, think about everything going on in that statement, a mindset that can enjoy and steward the mind. And my dad's a sharp guy, he's really sharp, he uses his brain all the time. A mindset that can enjoy and steward the mind in this life, that also has somehow surrendered that mind in a spiritual practice that holds even the mind loosely. My dad's kind of a Jedi. Loving God with our whole mind, a well mind, an integrated mind. We said last week there's some real overlap between the heart and the mind in Hebrew consciousness. What's translated heart and mind, these are subjective translations. And we said heart has some grounding in creative centers where thoughts and feelings come from. So then maybe the mind is the channel for those creative expressions. Maybe a filter we could think of for feelings, and we use words like thought, intention, inclination, kind of like a filter for those feelings. So love God, we might say, with the creativity of our original thoughts, the expression of our original thoughts. So with our intentions, not just what you do, but why you do it. With your affections, not just what you feel, but why? And from where do you feel those things? Your inclination, we might call this personality, not just who you are, but what makes you who you are? Where do you come from? What's your story? And then this is a big one. This is where we're going to land. What makes you who you are, and can you really change? What do you guys think? You think you can really change? Like at a core level, personality, inclination level, do people really change?
Defer to Heather.
Defer to, yes, right. Mental health professional, yes.
No.
Do people change, or in your experience, have you changed? Do people change?
Yes.
All right.
I think
There you have it.
I think you can, but I think to answer that question, you really have to take a deep dive into what are you defining as you.
Ooh, what is the self that does or doesn't
Right.
change?
And,
Okay.
that's something that philosophers have been wrestling
Right.
with since there were philosophers and since
Yeah.
before there were philosophers. So
Your gut reaction is yes.
my gut reaction is yes, but I think what we typically think of as you is what you show to the world.
Sure. And so we change the perception, but maybe not necessarily the core.
Right, and
Okay.
I think that's where some people have this idea that there are people who are inherently good and inherently bad, and I don't think that at the very core we are either of those things. I think at the core we are things that perceive the world around us and interact with other people who also perceive the world around us. And what we can change is how we interpret what we see around us.
Sure.
And what we put out from that core and so we can change what other people see of us. And really, at the end of the day, that's all that we have. All we have is what we see and what other people see of us. That's really all of what existence is.
Awesome. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Hot take, yes or no? Do people change?
I would consider it more like growth than change.
Okay.
Conceptually, I like to think that like we're essentially like building on whatever we've been.
All right.
So that stuff stays with us. We don't let it go necessarily, but it does shape who we are now. So the things that happen when you're a kid, those things stay with you even if you're like in your 30s or 40s or 50s or whatever.
Okay.
So even though growth is essentially also kind of change, I think it feels more embedded in the process of life. You grow.
Yeah.
So like you're building things up, you're adding things to who you are. But the things that were there, they're still there. You might maybe reject them in some capacity, but that's still a component of what got you to where you're at.
They're kind of folded in.
Yes.
The language a lot of spiritual teachers use or philosophers use would be transcend and include. So you move through stages, you bring that stuff with you, you don't reject it. Freddie, do we change? Yes or no?
I think that we're always changing.
We're always changing. Okay. Fantastic. So we're going to come back to that. That's actually how we're going to end. I just wanted to get some quick takes. What if changing your mind is just another way of saying repentance or evolution or transcendence or progress or awakening or a new consciousness or things like you may have heard, behold, you're a new creation in this reality such that the old is always going and the new is always coming? What if this text said, love God with every changing of your mind? Right? Instead of love God with all of your mind, love God with every changing of your mind. How is changing your mind scary? How is changing your mind scary? Think about that. Because what we're talking about is not just what we think about this, but how we practice it. So we should know. If we plan to practice loving God with our mind this week, we should know if there's going to be things that are scary. So how is changing your mind scary? And then how is changing your mind liberating? And sometimes those are the same thing, right? Because a lot of times it's the freedom of being yourself, helping someone else to change their mind about you, or you change your mind about them so that you can be who you really are, so they can be who they really are. And then how is changing your mind an expression of love? I think each of those things are a part of our practicing of spirituality, right? Because even if changing our mind is scary, part of what we say is that our spirituality demands practice. It demands sacrifice. It demands pushing through things that are scary for the common good, for the good of other people. How is changing your mind liberating? We're looking all the time at how it is that we can be free from the things that hold us back. And how is your mind an expression of love? That's what we talk about in terms of what we're hoping to do with one another, with our neighbors, and in our neighborhood. So what does it mean for us to practice change? I've asked Heather if she'll read this quick quote from the Reverend Dr. Serena Jones, and then we're going to get into it. Go for it.
The lifetime I've spent studying Christianity has left me with the clear-eyed knowledge that tyranny unchecked never magically abates. It only grows deeper roots and stronger limbs. I ask my siblings of faith across the nation to not be silent or naive about what is happening around us. Our faith is being used as a weapon of mass destruction, and the sacred duty of our time is to find a way of reclaiming it as a force for good and justice.
To find a way of reclaiming it as a force for good and justice. I think this is what Jesus understood himself to be doing with his faith in his time. I think he realized that the Hebrew faith had fallen so far into collusion with the Roman Empire that it was a part of what was at that point, a global military superpower that was effectively terrorizing the world, and that needed change in the same way that we're trying to reclaim just a twisted and abused evangelical Western Christianity as a force for good and justice. Because some of us did come out of this and we're wondering what happened.
And Ben, let's not forget that yes, the Roman Empire at the time of Jesus and for the 100 or so years afterwards, when a lot of the New Testament
teachings
books
and
were
writings,
written, it was a global, as far as the globe existed then, the Near East and Europe and so on. It was a hegemony of just brutal, absolute power.
Yeah.
And yet, in probably between 2 and 3 lifetimes, maybe 250 years, the teachings of Christ were embraced by that Roman Empire,
Yes.
in so much that the leader of Rome became the leader of the Christian church. And it was that hegemony that spread Christianity then across the globe.
Yes.
So even something as horrendous and as evil as the occupying powers of Rome around the time of Christ, within a couple of generations, was changed into the thing that brought Christianity to the rest of the globe.
Indeed, which then cyclically became hospitals, became orphanages,
Right.
right. And so I think it's important, back to that transcend and include, it's not a rejection of everything that came before, but an acknowledgement that even through these things that were disgusting, this good has arisen.
Right.
And so, depending on where you freeze the frame.
It really shows you that it's not an impossible task.
Sure, that it can be done.
We often bury ourselves and say, "How I can never change the minds of people that are so opposed to the way I think," but you can.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Sorry.
I was thinking, no, not at all, not at all. And I think it leads right into this. I was thinking this week. How might a hard look at how we've changed our minds in the last 18 months about, let's just say, race, politics, how we've changed our minds about healthcare, how we've changed our minds about education, how we've changed our mind about economics, how we've changed our minds about the coronavirus, how we've changed our minds, some of us, about our family, how we've changed our minds about immigration, how we've changed our minds about the church, how we've changed our minds about God in the last 18 months, our neighbors. How might this look at our changing our mind practice? If we think of changing our minds as a spiritual practice, how might that tell us most of what we need to know about whether or not our faith is being practiced as a force for good and justice in the world? I mean, I hope we have all changed our minds in each of these areas of our lives in the direction of good, in the direction of justice. St. Paul says, be conformed no longer to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Why? So that you can test what's good and mature and true. Brooks just asked this. I don't know that you can. What did he say? How do you renew your mind without embracing change? Right? It can't be done. We could use some of that these last few years, right? The ability to test what's good, what's mature, and what's true. Paul also says your attitude, which also loosely translates mind or mindset, but you kind of get it. He says, let your attitude, let your mindset be like Jesus. And he goes on to explain what humble servant leadership looks like, what self-giving love looks like. And he believes that our minds, that our attitudes can change. He believes that our minds and our attitudes can change. Jesus believes that our minds and our attitudes can change. I have to believe that the people that wrote the bulk of the texts that we consider sacred did so as an expression of this hope that future generations' minds could change. That we could come to know truth still in the ways that they had, that we might share in that. So it's great news. I was reading this really heart-wrenching story this week about marriages collapsing over QAnon conspiracy breaking points, right? One part of the couple that couldn't change, and the other, that couldn't deal with the way things were going. We can change our minds. I mean, let's hope we can change our minds. As a country, let's pray we can change our attitudes toward the value of the human mind. Part of the value of the human mind is the possibility of moving beyond these binaries. The presence of nuance, the value of discernment, the goodness of mystery rather than a threat. You know, like cancel culture has been this huge deal recently, and this week, I mean, it's been a huge deal for a long time, but it's in the news under the name cancel culture this week. So I was watching Trevor Noah, and they're talking about the Dr. Seuss stuff. And if you haven't caught up on this, the company, the foundation that runs Dr. Seuss, elected to pull 6 books because there was language or imagery that they felt like was no longer representing the values of their own organization. So they looked at themselves, they said, this is not who we are, we're better than this, we're going to make this change. And in response to that, people lost their ever-loving minds because they thought Dr. Seuss had somehow been like bullied through cancel culture to changing. And part of what Trevor Noah said, which I think is at the heart of what we mean by renewing our mind, is that sometimes changing isn't about being canceled or reaction to being canceled. Sometimes changing is just what it means to grow up. Right? It's just looking at ourselves and going, you know what? I mean, I was doing this week. I was a bully in middle school. You know, and I look at that and I go, man, I would be embarrassed if any of these people I love ever saw the behavior that I exhibited in middle school, the things I said to some people in middle school. And if that had been captured in a book, you bet I would be looking back and going, you know what? I think I'm going to remove those books from circulation because that no longer represents who I am and what I believe in and my values and who I want my kids to understand that I am and who I want them to be.
Or in today's terms, if those videos appeared on Instagram
Sure,
or
yeah.
Snapchat.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. And then everybody came out of the woodwork. Yeah, so it's Huck is going through. Oh, thanks. Huck is going through recently struggling with embarrassment. And I had this realization this week because he'll get upset, he'll shut down, he'll get quiet, and he'll storm out of the room. And it seems like he's angry and he's aggressively reacting. And I've learned that it's actually his fear of being canceled. It's not him canceling us. It's not this selfish abandonment. I want what I want, and if I can't get it, I'm going to leave the room. He's leaving the room and he's shutting down because he's wondering, am I going to get canceled by my own tribe? Am I going to get canceled by my own family? And Michelle and I were talking about this at coffee this week about how tough it is raising boys because now toxic masculinity isn't coming from Huck, it's coming from me. It's my projection that he's storming off aggressively, that he's rejecting us and really he's running. He's self-protecting. He's afraid of rejection. He's afraid of embarrassment. Or like this upcoming action assembly, Fred, right? We have to be clear about the fact that what we're doing is trying to change the minds of representatives, right? We're going in and we're saying they don't yet support what we believe to be justice, what we believe to be a sacred movement for affordable housing. If they disagree with us, and some of them do, right? That's what all of these meetings leading up to it, we're having meeting after meeting, talking about what it is that we need from them, their commitments, our needs, people who need housing. If they disagree with us, and we expect them to, we don't cancel them, right? That would kill the entire model of the way that we're organizing for justice. We want to elevate the public discourse. We want to engage in debate about why they don't support this way of funding affordable housing, and we want to change their minds. We believe that's sacred. Even as we stay open to having our minds change, how much have we learned in these conversations and interviews? Our minds are being changed every time we meet to try to advance this affordable housing stuff. All right, now I promise to keep it simple. We're going to wrap it up. There's this term coined by a Stanford professor, Carol Dweck, and this is a term you've heard, growth mindset. Now, before you tune it out and you go, okay, enough of this, Tony Robbins, Joel Osteen, your PE coach from middle school, Matt Foley, positive mental attitude. Hear me out and forgive me, one more oversimplification. Carol Dweck says that there are 2 ways of looking at the world, and I know that's a gross oversimplification. Let's just call them fixed mindset and growth mindset, okay? And this is the question we started with, can we change? Fixed mindset believes that our identity cannot actually change. Our identity is fixed. Who I am is who I am. I'm not good at math, right? This was me in 7th grade. I'm not good at math. Rather than, I'm in 7th grade and I haven't studied math. And I have no experience in algebra, or even math doesn't come naturally to me. No. I go, I'm not good at math, me. Not good at math, fixed, can't change, can't transform, can't grow. See if this feels like anyone other than me. The fixed mindset, and this is probably shocking, actually resists criticism. And you're probably like, haha, who doesn't? But check it out. When you say that you're bad at math, someone with a fixed mindset takes that so personally because they believe they're fixed, or that they can't be fixed, basically, they can't get good at math. They're afraid to perform and to find out that they're not good enough. And so a lot of times people with a fixed mindset, they don't even know whether or not they're good at something. They won't perform because they're afraid to find out. They're afraid they'll find out they aren't good enough and they never will be. And so they're resistant to learning the fixed mindset because they don't believe they can learn. They don't think they can change. Aren't we talking about spiritual growth? Spiritual growth? Aren't we talking about self-improvement? Isn't the language we're talking about inherently about, I mean, that's what Andrew was saying, inherently about change? And I mean, in some sense, I get it. Who wants change? Everybody. Who wants to change? No damn buddy wants to change. And yet, behold, anyone who is in Christ, which, by the way, most of us happen to believe that that's all people. Anyone who's in Christ is a new creation. The old is always going. The new is always coming. Or St. Paul, be transformed then by the renewing of your mind. Or the text, change your mindset to be like the Christ mindset. Let go of your self-consciousness, which, by the way, you seem not to love all that much. Let go of your self-consciousness. And remember, I'm preaching to myself. Remember my anxiety meds. And I think maybe part of what the invitation of the spiritual practice is if we can find a way to let the self-consciousness go, it's not that we go out like on a quest and find the treasure of the Christ consciousness. I think it's that as we let the self-consciousness go, the Christ consciousness comes. You don't have to grasp for it. You don't have to believe your way to it. You don't have to read another book. You don't need another Bible study. It's about letting go of the self-consciousness, and then the Christ consciousness can arrive in the surrender. Does that sound like fixed consciousness? Does that sound like a fixed mindset? No. People with a growth mindset believe that all sorts of things are possible because change is possible. They learn because they see learning as essential to growth and growth as essential to wellness, wholeness, integrity. Buckle up, this is the least popular part of this. They learn from their failures. And that's what I'm trying to do here very often, all the time, very publicly, like tonight, is acknowledging. So this is clinically proven. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. It can be taught, which means it can be practiced. You're not stuck. You're not fixed. You can learn a growth mindset even if you're in a fixed mindset. And by the way, the regression that we've been experiencing as a result of the pandemic and everything going on in the country, that regression makes us feel like we're in a fixed mindset or even like we're regressing to a prior fixed mindset. It feels that way, but that's not real. We can choose to change. We can learn growth mindset. And here are a handful of really simple practices I just want to ask you to carry into this week that can help you live a little bit more into this growth mindset or to choose this intention, at least, or this frame of mind. So 4 things. And I promise you, you will each encounter each of these this week. Before we meet again, 7 days, I promise you'll each get one of these. And I'm just inviting you to try the practice if you can. So first, you're going to encounter a challenge. You will encounter a challenge at some point this week. And the practice is simply this: embrace it rather than avoid it. And you may already know what that is right now. You may be looking at Monday. You may be going 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. That's that meeting. That's my challenge. What does it mean for you simply to choose now to embrace it rather than avoid it? Who knows what will happen? That's the practice. Number 2, effort. Something this week will take effort. I promise you that. I want to invite you to choose to see that effort as a path rather than a wall. Simply say to yourself, whatever the hard thing is, it's a way to getting somewhere rather than a thing that's trying to block you. Because a lot of times we run into something difficult and we go, this is a speed bump, it's a wall, it's trying to block me. What if the hard thing is actually the path? So you're going to have to put out effort in that moment. See if you can remember just to tell yourself it's a path, it's not a wall. Others. You are going to encounter others this week. If you don't encounter others, pause this spiritual practice and call me, because we need to make sure you encounter others. Others. I want to simply invite you to be inspired by others rather than threatened. And I understand we're in a time in our lives and in our country and in our history where it's easy to be threatened. I simply want to invite you to be inspired by a person rather than threatened by them. And then again, finally, criticism. You're going to encounter criticism. Unfortunately, we're not going to do everything perfect. I know that's tough. I want to ask you to seek criticism rather than avoid it. Instead of being afraid that someone might see something you do and not like it, what would it mean for you to be proactive? Find somebody that you know that kind of likes you. They have a good vibe about you, and just ask them, hey, is there something I could be doing better? Is there something that you'd like to see me do more? Is there something I could do that would help you do your job better? Just ask. Go seek out some criticism rather than avoiding it. This way of seeing the world experiences life as an adventure, right? This is like a mountain that we're never going to be done climbing. This is a journey that doesn't have an arrival. And the reason it's so good is it can be done well and always growing, right? It's not like if we're not at the finish line, we're no good. It's good. We're doing well. We're integrated. We're sustainable. We're in a good place, and we're always growing. We're always expanding that mind. Less afraid, more vital, more creative, more joyful. Paul says, cultivate the same mind as Jesus, who didn't take advantage of power. He became a servant and gave everything, even his life, because he believed in the potential of all people. That no one was fixed. That all people could be mature in love. And Jesus is a romantic in this way, right? He's an idealist. But he's also similar enough to a political zealot that this expansive new consciousness of his growing mindset was a threat enough to religious and political powers that they killed him. And before they did this, though, he sets a table with his friends. And when they get together, they pray together for unity, so that all of them would be one, so that even people who weren't a part of their community yet would all be one. And then he goes on and he says, the bread and the wine are like his own body, like his own blood. They're symbol of a new consciousness that's beyond self and beyond tribe. And it's a way of love that takes love all the way. If you've got some bread for the journey, if you've got some nourishment for the soul, you can feel free to join us tonight. I actually meant to grab some tortillas in my cup, and I forgot to grab them. Last week we had hot dog buns and water. And I want to say this, it's not to mock, right? It's not to make little of the sacrament. We do believe this is a sacrament, but rather to infuse it with significance and to invite everyone to participate. So if you've got some bread for the journey and some sort of nourishment for the soul, hear these words. Before every meal, a monk or a nun recites the 5 contemplations. This food is a gift of the whole universe. The earth, the sky, and much hard work. May we live in a way that is worthy of this food. May we transform our unskillful states of mind, especially that of greed. May we eat only foods that nourish us and prevent illness. May we accept this food for the realization of the way of understanding and love. In Christianity, when we celebrate the Eucharist, sharing the bread and wine as the body of God, we do it in the same spirit of piety and mindfulness as Jesus did, aware that we're alive, enjoying dwelling in this present moment. The message of Jesus during the Seder meal that has become known as the Last Supper was clear. His disciples had been following him. They had the chance to look into his eyes, to see him, to be with him in person. But it seems they had not yet come into real contact with the full, marvelous reality of his being. So when Jesus broke the bread and poured the wine, he said, "This is my body, this is my blood. Drink it and eat it, and you will have life." It was a drastic way to awaken his disciples from forgetfulness. The miracle happens not because he said, or because we say the words correctly, not because he had or because we have the right bread and the right wine, but because we eat and drink in mindfulness. The table of this radical new mind, of this growing mindset, and of the sacred process of transforming this mind, this table is set for us tonight. As always, it's open to us and to all people, and no one will ever be turned away. Let's reflect as we sing a bit more.
you don't succeed. You get what you want, but not what you need. You feel so tired, but you can't sleep. Stuck in reverse. Tears come streaming down your face. You lose something you can't replace. You love someone, but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones. I will try to fix you. High up above or down below, too in love to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you're worth. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones. I will try to fix you. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, and tears stream down your face. Promise you I will learn from my mistakes. Tears stream down your face, and lights will guide you home and ignite your bones. I will try to fix you.
Whoo-wee, I believe we have made it. Thank you guys so much. What a great time together, 608. We went a little long. We had a ton going on in that welcome, though. So if you would describe it as like a little spark or a little tingle, a little glitter, a little excitement about Collective Church coming back, there's more and more stuff coming on. We're headed toward being fully online for this next season on Easter. We're excited to be with you guys. It's been great to have a few people here. Good to see you again, Heather, Fred, as always, Kenny. Thanks for being with us. Thanks, Brandon, our great producer. Our benediction tonight, you can sign up for the weekly email and give to Collective at wearecollectivechurch.com. Get to know us a bit better. We're going to jump on a Zoom chat right after the meeting. Kenny will be ready to share that in just a second if it's not already in there. Thanks for being with us online tonight, live or later. Your presence makes us who we are. Our benediction tonight is from Matshona Gliwayo. The ignorant learn from none. The simple learn from some. The intelligent learn from many. The enlightened learn from all. The arrogant learn from none. The gracious learn from some. The patient learn from many, but the humble learn from all. The disinterested learn from none, the curious learn from some, the keen learn from many, but the disciplined learn from all. May we practice the renewal of our mind together this week. Let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention. First, to our foreheads for clarity of thought, to our lips for clarity of speech, to our hearts for clarity of action, so that in all that we say and do, love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. We'll see you momentarily on the Zoom. Peace.